Content warning. This podcast contains blood. Nope.
I mean, it does.
Content warning. This podcast contains blood. God damn it. Am I dyslexic? Content warning. This podcast contains bones, blood, smut, and swear words.
And blood.
And blood.
Before we get into the good shit, Before we get into the good shit this week, we wanted to remind you that we've launched a Patreon. For just $1 an episode, you can get a brand new game each month in addition to getting access to our notes and murder boards. So if you want to support Brooke's work on her Ianthe shrine, head to patreon.com/frontlinefifth or follow the link in the show notes. Okay, now back to that sweet, sweet Bone Zone action.
Act 1. Welcome, penitents. Hello and welcome to the Frontline Fifth, a Locked Tomb podcast where brand spanking new novitiates explore the Locked Tomb series for the first time, while a couple of dried out bone witches cackle over how little they really know. We're currently reading Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, and this week we are trying to emotionally handle the tragic end to the final epic battle that I think we all knew was coming in chapters 35 and 36. I'm your host, Hannah, and I'm actually still wiping blood and gore off myself, but I've got my sister bone magician, Marie, here with a Tide pen.
It's not doing enough.
Marie?
Need more Tide pens.
Actually, I really like that as like a necromancer kit, like shit you bring with you, and like it's a lot of Tide pens. Okay. Marie, I think we all know that the most important part of these chapters is Palamity's epic mic drop moment. So what's the sickest exit line you've ever given? And or what dramatic exit do you fantasize about throwing down?
So it is a running joke in my lab that I do not have any dramatic exits. In fact, my research students regularly come find me in my office an hour after I said I'm leaving and or have their own little internal contest to see how long they can keep me talking to them after I've told them I'm leaving with like coat on, keys in hand. So I don't do dramatic exits. However, there is a dramatic exit that I think about at least once a week, and it's we've got a little ways to go for it, but just stick with me. So the genetics professor was standing in my office door, and we're chatting about nerdy shit. So we were talking about how in ye olden days you could map the E. coli genome using conjugation, which is as close as bacteria get to sex. And he was like, yeah, I'm old enough that I actually did that. I actually did that type of mapping in grad school. And he said it was really annoying because what I was trying to map was in the back half of the chromosome. And it's really hard to sustain mating for like 30 or 40 minutes. And then he literally goes, wink, wink, and then departs from my doorway with his upper body horizontal like a cartoon character. And I thought he would come back to like laugh about his dramatic exit. And he never nope.
He owned it. He owned it.
That's incredible. That's amazing.
Wow. Thank you for sharing.
Well, we are also joined today by the sweet buds of thallergy that once believed in justice and joy, Brooke and John. So, John, Brooke, have you ever had a killer exit? Wink, wink. What would your perfect version look like?
Oh my God. I don't do perfect mic drop exits. I like have always wanted to have one, like especially like, you know, closing statement of a debate. But that's something that, like, you know, you're in bed later on, and you're like, I got it!
Yep.
Nothing comes up to Palamity's being described as a god-killing star.
Ugh!
In a similar vein, I feel like I really excel at the end of meeting goodbye, which is where I say thanks everyone, and then we hang up the Zoom or Teams call. I absolutely crush that every time. But otherwise, no, mostly they come to me in the shower later that day as I was thinking about things I could have said or silly puns.
I too have no sickest exit lines, but it's for better or for worse. My work situation is a lot better right now than it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. But I used to fantasize daily about just some moment that would send me over the edge, something that would happen. And I would look into my heart and say, is this it? And I would say to myself, this is it. and then I would turn around and leave silently and never come back. I was like, I thought about it every single fucking day. I was like, surely eventually it will hit this point. Anyway, okay, so
Very theater.
thank you. I had the very genuine pleasure this week of experiencing some of your first impressions of these chapters via voice memo. I did share them with several of my colleagues. Would you care to share them with our listeners?
Oh no. So I read these chapters like 2 weeks ago now, almost, and I was so upset.
It requires the relevant accompanying text where you explain how you really shouldn't have been drinking wine and you are now eating an entire bag of Ruffles to assuage your feelings.
So
The potato crunch sound was just chef's kiss. You were like, oh, and it was great.
I'm so fucking upset. I knew this was coming. I knew it was going to happen. Like, there was just one sentence. There was one sentence. And then I was like, oh, fucking shit. No, I know what's about to happen here. Fuck! I'm so mad. Part of me wants to cry. Dude. Man. Bad choice to open a bottle of wine tonight.
Right, so I had obviously a very emotional response to this. I mean, initially we're going through so we read chapters 35 and 36 for this week. And chapter 36 is going on for a really long time. And I was like, this is insane. Like, I'm almost getting bored. This has never happened in this book. Like, why am I getting so bored? And then right about 2 pages before the end of the chapter, I'm just like, oh no. Oh no, please don't. I know what's about to happen here. Oh no. And so I'm just basically about to start sobbing for the last 2 pages. I'm looking up from my book. I'm crying to my husband who has not read these chapters. I can't say anything because he's going to read the chapters. And it was extremely tragic. I had a very emotional response to it. Yeah, a lot of emotional support eating.
In a similar vein, I got 3 pages before the end of the last chapter, and I put the book down and just went, oh, motherfucker, because I also kind of saw what was going to happen
John,
here.
we're going to have to compare notes on exactly what the moment was and see if it is just something where the human condition just clicks in on it versus you're smart.
Yes. But my other reaction is that once again, Brooke and I were so close, yet
You, mostly.
we were backwards again. I'm so annoyed that we haven't just nailed really, we nailed a couple of things, but we've gotten so close to just nailing so many parts of this book, and then we just end up getting it backwards, and so that doesn't count because this isn't hand grenades or horseshoes. So it's so.
I love that. I love that we're still surprised even with all this extra preparation.
Yeah. As soon as Polamides went into Dulcinea's wardroom, I was just like, oh motherfucker, we got this backwards. It's her. God damn it. That was generally my thoughts. And then obviously, first off, incredible writing around the fight scenes and everything. That was really well done. And then just incredibly drawn out suffering, and everyone's just accumulating wounds and damage. And then, culmination in, again, what you saw coming, but that didn't make it any easier.
I think that, what you said, Brooke, is absolutely a perfect insight into these chapters of the almost getting bored. That is kind of part of the whole point is you are also, as a reader, supposed to be just absolutely done and exhausted and can we get a fucking break? Why isn't she just gonna die? Why isn't somebody just gonna die? Why isn't just something gonna happen? And then you're like, no, not that way
That's
though.
what I wanted.
Yeah, you're like, we need a Hail Mary pass, but not that one.
Nope.
Yeah. I think it's devastating. I cry almost every time. And actually, I cry less at what happens and more at the conversation between Harrow and Gideon in those last couple of pages. It's heartbreaking. I want to share with you a couple things. One is, so it's a very weird thing because I truly did have a crush on Dulcinea the first time I read this book through, right? She is so charming and flirty and sassy and a little bit mean, but in a cute way. I don't know how to explain it. And then once you can't go back to not knowing. And so I have a hard time going through this book with you guys and not using the her real name, which is Cytherea, and not Oh,
Is that how we say
Brooke's
that?
face. Brooke's face is exactly how I felt the first time.
That was a mixture of jaw drop and horror.
Kitharea?
It's Kitharea.
It feels like so obvious that it should be a soft C, but apparently it's a hard K sound, and so now I.
There
Anyway,
goes
we're
one of
all
my things
upset
for the
about
game
it.
later. God damn it.
This is almost as bad as Gideon dying. Sorry. But so like I just wanted to share something with you because I have been rewatching Burn Notice, which is not a good show, but I am having the
It is a good
most
show.
fun.
What are you talking about? It's the great
a great
it's the
show.
show.
The most fun. I just watched an episode though that had a couple of phrases that I felt like were built for Kitharea. So one was mass murderers come in all shapes and sizes, but they tend to drink the same brands of champagne. And I felt like that was very her.
Wow.
And then I also liked this one, same episode. Spend time with corrupt homicidal political figures and you hear a lot of self-pity. And I was like also on the nose.
Wow, who would have thought that Burn Notice had some writing to pull out?
Oh no, Burn Notice
you.
is so good.
I love Burn Notice, but it was mostly because they were
I
hot.
love it.
Okay, I don't
Never
want to be
watched
that
Burn
person,
Notice.
but I don't find him hot at all. I feel like he has a weird face.
Yeah,
He's
you're not
super
wrong.
hot every
It's
time he
mostly
takes
Fiona.
his shirt off.
It's mostly
but
Fiona.
despite the fact, oh, she's hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh yeah. It's Fiona.
Even though it's set in Miami, they never have him with his shirt off. He's always in a suit, so he's just a guy in a suit with a weird face. All right, we're done. Well,
Oh, he does have a weird face. Oh, he was in Sicario. Okay, yeah,
But I
that's
kind
where
of
I
like
know
his
him
little
from.
smirk.
Okay.
I kind of like the personality he has in that show.
Oh,
and
for sure.
I find that attractive.
and I
even if-
adore Fiona. And
Yeah.
I like. Okay, I'm having a lot of fun watching it. No complaints. And yes, the writing here was perfect.
Love it.
Well, we are in a climactic battle for our lives here in the first house, so please huddle under this bone shell with us as we present episode 17, One Flesh, One End. Act 2, The Ferocious Joy of Vengeance.
This section of Frontline Fifth is safe for anyone who hasn't read past chapter 36 in Gideon the Ninth.
Let's recap. Chapter 35, Sixth House Skull. Dulcinea is an imposter. Sextus gives a lictor turbo cancer. Sextus explodes. Chapter 36, Ninth House Skull. The epic final battle. Harrow learns perpetual bone. That's what she said. Ianthe loses an arm. Gideon falls on her sword, metaphorically.
It's a spike.
I do want to take a moment here. None of us are medical doctors, but if your perpetual bone goes on for more than 4 hours, you should see a specialist. Okay. Well, Ianthe's a lictor and just
Wait,
disappeared
oh,
through the floor.
Damn it.
What?
If it's necromancers, it's called Diagra. That's a shitty pun. We can cut that. That's fine.
Incredible. You cannot cut that.
I
That
love
was
that your
glorious.
brain is just like, wait, stop. I got something good here.
There's a pun. There's a pun.
Fun.
I'm just for the next 30 seconds thinking of one for Cialis.
Well, Ianthe's a lictor and just disappeared through the floor in a pool of blood. The scions of the 8th house are both dead, and everything has basically gone to shit. Camilla, Harrow, and Gideon step out of the gore-splattered lictor lab, only to realize that Palamides is no longer with them.
Scooby-Doo moment. I thought he was with you.
Not only are the scions of the 8th house dead, but there's this line in there that I love, and it's 5 people had died that day. Because if we're counting, that's the 2nd house, the 8th house, and Babs.
Yep.
Whew. All right.
And that's not even counting teacher and the priest.
Yes,
who
I did
feel,
notice
you know,
those were very...
I mean, they kind of died 10,000 years ago, so...
Are they people, or are they just souls in a body?
Or are they just
Yeah,
dancers?
but I think they should get credit for being 100 souls. That's 100 deaths, people.
What is a person? But I love it. 5 people had died that day. It was weird how the small things ballooned out in importance comparatively.
Yeah, because the small things that balloon out in importance are they start talking about, like, Camilla's like, why are you and Palamides being so weird?
Yeah, this is like everybody realizes that Palamides has definitely gone to check on Dulcinea, and Gideon has this great line where she says that Harrow thinks she's a weenie over Dulcinea, but Palamides is at least 600% weenier.
I've been calling people weenies after reading this, and I've gotten a lot of, why am I a weenie here?
And
'Cause you are.
so basically Camilla is like, yeah, he's a weenie over Dulcinea. He's been a weenie over Dulcinea for 12 years. And Gideon is like, double take. So
Face first.
Yep.
yeah, basically Calamities and Dulcinea have been pen pals since they were literal children. I think it starts when Pal is like 8 and she's like 13, right? So it's this situation where Calamities fell in love with this person via writing and has spent his whole life dedicating himself to medical science in order to actually like improve her situation. And she's always taken him seriously, even though she was older. You know, he was an 8-year-old and she was a teenager. And so it got to the point where literally last year, Calamities asked her to marry him. And she said no. And so basically, he's in full fucking heartbreak. And he's been really chill about the fact that Gideon has been spending an awful lot of time with Dulcinea out on the balcony.
What would you do if you were a 15-year-old and an 8-year-old was coming on to you via letters?
Well, we have to remember that Calamity's version of coming on to you would be like, you know, he's like being thoughtful. He's not writing you a love poem. He's like asking you how you're doing and asking you about the specifics of your symptoms and whether this thing is making them better. I don't know.
I mean, but you're reading between the lines.
Still weird.
I think it's like one of those things where, sorry, I just got distracted. Remind me, I don't know where I'm going to have to put this, but my best friend has a bone to pick with you, John.
On what?
Okay. Derail it. We'll completely derail.
Yep, go.
Is this a good time? It doesn't matter. There won't be a good time. The complete derail is because we were having our conversation. She was talking about this past week's podcast. So remember, we're always recording ahead of time. And so this was the one where John made a comment about like my kids weren't going to be good at soccer anyway because they were Americans. And she was like, this is my Roman Empire. And she was like, excuse you.
Nice.
My kids are going to, just because they're American doesn't mean they can't be good at soccer.
I
And
absolutely stand by my comments.
well, she herself is an elite soccer player, you know, like college elite soccer player. And so she was very much...
I'm sorry. Allow me to clarify. I only speak for the men of America.
I'm running to the bathroom real quick. I'm so sorry.
Well,
That's true,
I mean,
actually.
it's also, she has sons who are in soccer, so you got to be careful.
Nevertheless, John is right. I feel like the women of America can kick a ball.
I will give the women of America their credit. Men, no, sorry. You got to get out of group play first for at least a few times before we give you any credit.
Okay, we'll see what her fire back is on that.
Yeah. All right. So Brooke has left the room. What are we talking about behind her back?
How amazingly competent she is.
She really is. I really would love her to run. Like, I would happily work for her. I don't like the idea of working for a boss. This is like my whole goal is to be my own boss. But I would work for Brooke. Like, she would be efficient. She would get shit done.
Oh yeah.
I would get shit done for her on her behalf.
Yeah. I need more management in my life.
Said no one ever. That seems great.
I'm sorry. I am in the point of being like that's the trap of being a professor is you are both your own boss and not your own boss. But you got a lot of people who like depend on you for remembering shit, and that is not my strong point.
That's what sticky notes are for. Oh, speaking of which, I got your letter and I really loved it, and I haven't written to you yet, but I will. Yeah. Anyway. Okay.
Did you get your stickers, Brooke?
Oh my god, I did get my sticker!
Yes. Okay, good. Wait, you guys have to say because you all got a new Magnus, but you got different heart. You got different heart stickers.
Can I just say I opened it and then I left it on our coffee table, and my wife comes home and was like, "Who sent you a letter with like a heart?" Valentine looking thing, and then she's like, "Oh, obviously it's Marie." It's just like for like a second, I was like, "What the fuck is happening?"
For a second, she was like, "Ooh, who are you getting Valentines from?"
What did your little heart say?
Let me go look.
Brooks says, "Eat me, milkman."
Fucking love it.
Be my bone witch.
How did you make these?
I didn't. I bought them.
Oh my god, they're so cute.
But I'm not sending you the store link because they're spoilers. So
Mine says, "Want to go loud?" ?
Yes. Oh,
yeah,
that's very good.
And then I was like, oh, the one that I sent to John, I sent you guys thematic ones for like the things that you liked the best, but I was like, also, yeah, somebody's sending you a heart sticker that says "Want to go loud."
it's hilarious because it could mean like, hey, do we want to like make our relationship public? Like, should we like go loud with our relationship, or it
Make
could just
it
be
official?
like, hey, we're gonna be making some noises. Like,
I know. I was like, I thought about it afterwards, and I was like, well,
wife.
we'll get it.
Great, anyway.
Well, this was also, so this is hilarious because like also my husband opened my letter because he thought that it was like spam. He thought it was just like, or like mail from a university trying to recruit me in a weird way. I don't know what he thought, but it was like half open and he was like, I'm sorry.
I'm putting my fingers in everybody's relationship accidentally. Whoops, sorry.
Love it.
It was great. All right. So basically, Gideon is horrified because she did not realize that she was a homewrecker. She did not realize that she was inserting herself into people's relationships the way Marie would when she sends letters to us all.
Inserts himself. Inserts himself where?
Why was I
Anyway.
born so attractive?
Why was I born so attractive is like my very favorite thing. She throws herself down on the floor
Face
and
first.
literally.
It's so funny.
Oh my God. She's
And
freaking
Harrow
the fuck out.
responds to her super cute.
Yeah, because Harrow says because otherwise everybody would have strangled you, which means that Harrow is like, yeah,
Thinks
you are
she's
very
attractive.
Like you are hot though. Hot, gorgeous. So Gideon is like, can you guys just chill for 2 seconds? Please go get my longsword, Harrow. I need to talk to Palamides. I realize that people are dying everywhere and we still don't know who's murdering everyone and there's a lictor on the loose that would
This
be
is something
Ianthe.
we can handle.
Yes, like I have to sort this out with Palamides today. So she rushes off towards Dulcinea's room and finds Palamides standing there in the hallway.
But
he
importantly,
looks
she
at
tells
her.
Harrow, go get my longsword. And Harrow goes, what?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's such a great
false
aside.
bottom.
It just made me appreciate how hilarious the asides are in this book, where like something is happening and then we just get like the cutaway to the character. Because yeah, Gideon's like, go get my longsword. It's in the false,
bottom
bottom
of my
of
trunk.
And Harrow's like, what the fuck?
That actually was almost the question I put in as like the question at the beginning this week was like, what are you hiding in the bottom of your suitcase? But basically, Pal is standing there in the hallway, and before Gideon can say anything, and without Pal saying anything, he folds his hand like a piece of paper and necromantically freezes her in place. She is stuck. She can't move or scream. And Pal turns and goes into Dulcinea's room.
Oh, we didn't.
So-
we said meme watch, but then we didn't. But there, I guess, if we're saying that the Bible is a meme watch, then this is the meme right here because it says, "And Palamides saw that it was good." So it's basically like the phrase in the Bible in Genesis when God makes the world. He surveyed his work and
He
saw
looked
that
at
it
his
was
work
good.
and he saw that it was good. Yeah. And actually, with that line, the first time I read this, I had a moment. I hadn't turned the page yet, and I was like, "What the actual fuck? Palamides is the bad guy?"
Me too. I
I'm
was like,
so
no,
glad. This was
not
like
him.
a mind-boggling moment. I was like, "No fucking kidding. There's no way."
Yes. Well, I don't like even going back and quite reading it. I'm not sure I fully understand like the attitude with which he's written here outside of her wanting to make you think for a second that he is the bad guy.
I think that it is that, like, it is to sow doubt for the reader and have you have this moment of, oh, no, but I love Palamides. It can't be him.
Betrayal.
Betrayal, right? It's so that you have that moment of betrayal, but also it is him being satisfied because he's pausing thinking, okay, if I go in and nobody witnesses this conversation, how do I kill her but protect everyone?
So you think
Yeah.
this
So-
is just him processing the situation and using it to his advantage?
Yeah, so he is sitting there pausing, trying to like figure out like what am I actually going to do, because I am now 1000% sure, or at least 99.99% sure that this is a lictor and I don't know where Dulcinea is, right? So it's like this moment of like completely and totally processing grief, or like anticipating processing grief, thinking of I am about to confront a lictor, and how do I protect everyone else? Or how do I make sure that they know? Because he also says, like, he tells Gideon,
He calls out to her at the end to tell Cam something, but like I think a big piece of it is not even so. partially making sure someone can overhear it, but also it's protecting Gideon, because if she went into the room with him, she's a bargaining chip that Kithareya can kill. Yeah. So I think it actually, like, he goes in effectively unarmed, you know, and it allows him to have this conversation with this imposter that has been pretending to be Dulcinea, because she doesn't have anything to fear from him as far as she can tell. She doesn't realize how good he is, right? So Gideon ends up eavesdropping on this whole conversation, which consists of several points. One, big fucking reveal: Dulcinea is an imposter.
Good job, John. Good job,
yeah,
John.
well done.
We were so close.
Your name etymology was spot
MVP.
on.
At some point, you
That's
thought
very
that she was a lictor somehow. So
Ages ago.
Yeah, I thought she had a lictor spirit inside her, which now that we know how lictordom works, didn't make any sense. But yes, we got very close, but got it backwards.
Right. And she basically got away with this because she's Kithareya the First. She was from the seventh house. She's one of Dulcinea's ancestors, you know, or related to Dulcinea's ancestors, and carried the same blood cancer. And because all of these houses have crazy inbreeding, she looked a lot like Dulcinea. So she was able to get away with it because she was what a seventh house scion ought to have looked like, right? And the really horrifying thing is that she has been both invincible but also slowly dying for 10,000 years. That, like, she actually became a lictor because she thought it would stop her from dying, and it did stop her from being dead, right? But she basically has been horrifyingly ill and in pain for 10,000 fucking years. And so Pal asks, why murder the fifth house first? And she explains that it actually was, I mean, both Abigail was a really talented spirit magician, but that's sort of nothing. What mattered was that Abigail had a side gig. She was a historian.
We got to kill the
And
academics first.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually. Yeah.
Sorry, too
It's
real.
horrifying. I have an escape plan. It's fine. Yeah, so Abigail was poking around looking for, like, information and like, ancient relics of the lictors, which is not good when you yourself are an old lictor there undercover.
Right. And this is one thing that it made me think of Brooke's lazy planning, because Pal even tells her, like, you didn't do your research. And she goes, oh, and I've been kicking myself ever since. But also, this is foreshadowed. This is one of the reasons why we went so carefully through the dinner conversation, because this is foreshadowed in the dinner conversations, because Abigail is telling Dulcie all about her interest in the lictors and the fact that she was even more excited to be at Canaan House to do lictor research, rather than becoming a lictor herself. And then after dinner, she watches as Abigail goes to ask teacher for the hatch key, because she has just learned about the facility. And she tells Gideon, I liked that dinner, said Lady Septimus with deep satisfaction. It was useful.
And they literally die that night, right?
Very creepy.
She's very fast once she finds out that someone is a threat.
Didn't she accuse Palamides of, like, young people of acting too quickly on their initial thoughts? Young people always act on things as soon as they think of them.
We have to go back and revisit everything she's ever said, right? And we'll come back to this in a second, because she says she never lied, and so now you have to go back and, like, read. Which I think I flagged in one of my conspiracy theories was, like, she never denied.
Did. I mean, she actually does when she calls herself Dulcinea. She is lying.
I'm not sure she ever names herself as Dulcinea,
does.
though. Other people do, right? And she just answers to it. Like, and so she claims she never lied, and there's lots of places where she says hypothetically, or one could imagine if, right? And actually, there's quite a number of places where, like, for instance, when she's talking to Gideon during the siphoning challenge, Gideon's, like, half dead, and she's telling her things that, like, make sense for Kithareya the lictor to be saying. But it doesn't really matter because Gideon is just in such horrible pain that, you know, they're just these little one-off lines like, oh, this is so terrible, don't ever let anyone do this to you again, kind of things. Yeah. And so literally, Kithareya boarded Dulcinea and Protesilaus' shuttle before they landed. And this is actually one of the few moments where I genuinely hate her. She says Protesilaus died in an accident because she didn't intend to kill him right that moment. He refused to hear a word of reason, so she had to kill him. It was an accident. And I'm like, that's not what a fucking accident is. Nope. You stabbed him through the heart.
Yep.
Also points out exactly how creepy all of these people are, because she calls Dulcinea a sweet little thing, and she kept her body around for a long time.
Horrifying. She literally had Dulcinea's body with her effectively until the moment when Harrow breaks the Protesilaus puppet, and then she realizes she has to get rid of it, and so she burns it in the incinerator. So presumably the two bodies in the incinerator are the everything except the head of puppet Protesilaus, and then the body of the real Dulcinea Septimus, which was killed before they landed at Canaan House.
Again, backwards. I thought it was the lictor's body, and then, oh my god, we were so close.
I'm just really upset that we never actually got to meet Dulcinea. Even as I was starting to read this and then having to process it, I was like, oh, well, maybe they made a big deal out of them looking the same. John made some comment about the eyes. Maybe we met her at some point. Nope. I'm very upset to know we never met her.
Yeah.
And it also explains all of those weird gazes that Pal had towards her that we were that's interesting. What does that mean?
It also explains all the times that she's described as looks like her eyes are old, or there's several comments throughout the book where it's just Dulcinea looks young, but also is talking with the wisdom of an old person, or looks like an old person.
And what is it about the eyes? Why are her eyes so weird?
It's because she's a lictor, and the lictor's eyes change colors.
They've got two colors because there's two souls. We saw that in Ianthe, right?
They're not
She's
her
purple
eyes.
and blue.
They fully exchange, actually. Once you're a full lictor, your cavalier's eyes are the eyes that you show.
Weird.
So
That's not her eyes. That's her cavalier's eyes. That's why her eyes are described as so startling, because they aren't her blue eyes.
Huh.
they're weird in her face. And they also, I will say this, John, to your point, this is something I would talk about with Marie behind your back, is that actually both teacher and the woman we knew as Dulcinea address almost everyone as children. Or child the entire time. And you can kind of dismiss it when you're like, oh, well, she's 25 and she's talking to an 18-year-old. But no, like, it is because she is 10,000 years old and she's talking to a fucking infant.
Oh, God. In my head, she was definitely like in her 30s, at which point you do talk to teenagers like that. But
yeah, the Abigail and Magnus were older than that, and they never talked to anybody that way.
They never call anyone a child, even,
well,
Jean-Marie and Isaac.
It's just tempting.
Yeah, but so it's interesting. She like slips up often because she sees these people as children.
Well, for the record, in light of all this, I'd like to go back to Fuck, Marry, Kill, Resurrect. I have changed my mind. But the whole, in light of this whole fake Dulcinea, I'm not into oozing ancient liches. And everything that was good about her is ruined when you realize how superficial everything that she like said and caring was. So I would like to go back.
Her.
I would go, maybe I want to go back and resurrect and marry Pal. Changing my mind, very upset about Pal, and changing my mind on Dulcinea. For the record,
I think that's
Okay. The record shows.
I
The record
appreciate
shows.
that.
Yeah.
Let the record show.
I would also like the record to show that it is important that how people are described. So even before you know they're dead. So Peliamina and Priam Hark are described with pale, waxy profiles, and then literally 2 sentences later, you get the bomb dropped that they are dead. And then when we meet Pro, he is described as a dour, bulky person whose skin had something of the girl's strange, translucent tinge.
AKA
he was
dead?
waxen looking in the sunlight, probably with sweat.
no, with death.
Yeah, because he's dead. So like both of the puppets, like all of the puppets that we see are described as waxen, and I don't think that anybody else really is.
No, I agree. Yeah. All right, so what was Cytherea's plan, you ask? She's there to disrupt the Emperor's plans to get more lictors. Her goal is to kill them off slowly but steadily so that she can lure him back to the system without him just sending in reinforcements instead. She can lure him back specifically, and he can get front row seats as she destroys the houses. And Palamedes asks her why she hates the Emperor. And she says, hate him. I have loved that man for 10,000 years. We all loved him, every one of us. We worshipped him like a king, like a god, like a brother.
That's a lot of different things that you would all use for the same person, right? Kind of curious.
Fascinating. We contain multitudes, Brooke. Sorry.
Maybe she's
I actually
confused.
think it is interesting. No, I think it's really, really interesting. This Emperor is playing a lot of roles in her life.
It's really interesting because it says he won't even come within the solar system, right? Like he won't even come. I forget what the word is. It's definitely an SAT word, but he won't even come within like Dominicus's.
Demesne, but I don't know how to pronounce
Domain.
it. But yeah.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
No, domain.
C'est français.
De français.
Oh,
I mean, Demes.
new
Yeah.
Magnus.
Is that where
All
we
right.
get the word domain? DOMAIN.
No idea.
Quick SAT. Domain etymology and then domain. DEMES. Yep, domain etymology. Domain comes from Dominus, Lord Master,
Dominicus?
to Dominicus to domain, belonging to a lord. Domain
So Dominicus is the son.
comes from domain. So it's like the domain, the way that it is put in the book with the DEMESNE is the like older English version of domain.
But it's almost redundant to say Dominicus is
That's a great point. That Dominicus itself implies
A
the
domain.
land owning.
So he won't even bother coming within the land of the Lord, of which he is the Lord.
But her whole goal is to draw him back as close as possible.
Weird. Okay. Confusing.
Well, this lictor imposter has basically used this entire book as free therapy. If you go back and you look at some of her conversations with Gideon, with everyone else, and certainly this conversation with Pal, she's really enjoyed kind of spilling all of her secrets that she hasn't been able to tell anyone for 10,000 years. And so now she's feeling a lot better. She's feeling like she's, managed to cathart real hard. So she was a little bit worried that Palamides was going to do something silly when he found out that Dulcinea was dead. But Palamides never does anything silly. He's just going to kill her. And that's when the lictor starts to cough. Palamides has spent this entire time basically keeping her villain monologuing, and feeling out all of her sicknesses, her bacterial lung infections, her blood cancer, and he has been putting them into overdrive. He's set them all to power up, and all he needs is an enormous burst of power. The kind of power you might get when a necromancer dies.
Well, specifically when they disperse all of their thanergetic energy at once.
Very
like you have to
suddenly.
very
That's right.
specifically sorry, I've been teaching metabolism. It's like the difference between our bodies burning glucose versus the like spontaneous reaction that you get that like bursts into flame in the presence of oxygen outside of our bodies.
Yeah.
Right? It's a slow
Combustion.
A slow like oxidation of carbon versus like an immediate like combustion that's like a kaboom.
And where are you going to get a kaboom? That would be from dispersing his own thanergy very, very rapidly. But before he does that, he calls out to Gideon because he knows Gideon is listening in the hall. And he says to tell Camilla, oh, never mind. She knows what to do. And then he fucking explodes. It's goddamn epic. It's also not enough.
It's a hilarious subversion of expectations. I like giggled a little bit when he said that because I was like, you're expecting him to say what Gideon paraphrases later, which is like, he said to tell you that he loves you. And like you're expecting something along those lines.
I love it.
and then-
Camilla's like, he said what?
He didn't.
No, he didn't.
No, he
Yeah,
didn't.
you're expecting that. And it's just like, no, never mind. She knows. Like she'll take care of it.
Fantastic.
She's competent.
I
Yeah.
also-
Well, and also when Gideon says, well, no, he just says, tell you would know what to do. And she's like very satisfied. I do.
So
Yeah.
sad.
So so he says that he explodes, and actually, like, Gideon manages to run away and hide. There's this enormous explosion. And then afterwards, Cytherea the First emerges from the wreckage. So she's not dead. Fair play to Pal. She is literally coughing up a lung. She's got huge, like, wounds that look like they're just open and not closing over. And then they start to close over. So, like, he did an enormous amount of damage, but it's simply not enough because lictors heal in real time.
Yep.
So she basically walks out and announces her intention to fuck up everything, starting with Gideon.
It's very
And this is
Terminator
After
two.
she
final
hacks
battle.
up a lung.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking horrifying. Actually, this entire sequence, and then also the next book, has some good gore. Gore. The final battle is very cool, but it's a lot, and we don't have all day, so I have a long version and a short version. Which would you prefer to go through?
Let's go short.
Short it is. Camilla fights with her two swords. Harrow fights with her skeletal constructs. Gideon fights with her two-hander. But at the end of the day, they are fighting a lictor. And I feel like we really actually underestimated how much power a lictor really has. Cytherea is a brilliant swordswoman, but she's also using necromancy. Like, it does not cost her anything.
I take
Right?
umbrage with you saying that Cytherea is a brilliant swordswoman. Clearly, it was Love Day.
There we go. Thank
Thank you. Very important. Loveday was a brilliant swordswoman whose soul was stolen by this crazy bitch, who is also simultaneously using necromancy.
Thank you.
So she's sitting there, she's cheating at the sword fight, and she also is like constantly running all sorts of necromantic things. She's recruits back her insane bone monster pet, which was the horrific construct with the stingers and the flails that killed Isaac. And so suddenly they're fighting that too. They actually have a couple of big successes. Harrow figures out how to make perpetual bone. She actually uses it to trap the monster. But it's so much effort for a normal necromancer, even an insanely powerful necromancer like Harrow, who's the greatest necromancer of her generation, and is also, you know, a necromancer that
Born
was
of the
created
death
by
of
killing 200.
children.
Exactly. Even that is not enough, right? Harrow passes out from the effort. So suddenly we've got Gideon, who at this point is trying to help up Camilla, who's been speared through the shoulder, and carrying Harrow, who is passed out. Everybody is running outside. However, right when they're about to get skewered by Cytherea, Ianthe, newly lictored, also enters the fight. It's great. She keeps calling Cytherea old news. Cytherea keeps calling her fresh blood, right? You know, she is incredible. She's really powerful. We've seen a lot of her like creepy fresh flesh magic with her fat, you know, wards
Chewing
and her
her
blood.
hair.
And yeah, it's a lot. It's
chewing her hair to power her necromancy. Just weird. She's
hot,
weird.
gorgeous.
Although, to be fair, that little like blood shield Aegis, that was pretty
That was
cool. That was
cool.
cool.
That
I
was
like
cool.
that.
She is very cool. She's gross, but she's cool. And she's very, very good, but she's not good enough. There's this moment when Cytherea looks like she's like getting weaker and weaker, and Ianthe advances and advances, and then Cytherea just like disperses all of her magic like it was nothing. Because here's the thing, Ianthe is new to being a lictor. She gets tired more easily, and frankly, Nibirius did not consent to this whole situation, so he is not going easily. She is not fully integrated.
And this is where we have to bring up something of like saying like Cytherea stole Loveday's swordsmanship.
Yeah.
She kind of didn't.
The story from Cytherea, this is the
Yeah.
first time having to say it, is that
if the
she went
original
willingly.
lictors and their cavaliers were as creepily interdependent and codependent as everybody that we've seen, then I can absolutely believe that Loveday did it willingly or thought that that was her only choice.
I think that it's not a bad bet to believe that if the third house had come in with Ianthe as a necromancer and Coronabeth as a cavalier, that Corona would have opted to become. I mean, she really was upset when he took Babs instead.
Yep.
Right. So it's possible. I also think
Oh,
Brooke's point is a
yeah.
really important one, though, because Cytherea is the same person who told us Protesilaus had an accident because he wouldn't hear reason. So being like, Loveday thought it was the only way that I would stay alive. It's possible Loveday was like, this is the only way you're going to stay alive, but it seems like a terrible idea. And she's like, I heard the first part.
It's also just a hilarious mirroring of what Gideon does at the end of this chapter, which is we need to keep our necromancer alive. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see your point. There's another thing about Ianthe here that like really hurt. You brought up Coronabeth. Cytherea goes, I've always wanted a little sister. And Ianthe goes, yeah, you know, I've tried the whole sister thing and I wasn't really good at it. And I was like, oh,
It's
that's
so
an
awful.
extra stab to the heart for Coronabeth. She's like completely removed herself from her sister's life with that
This
statement.
is a good, because I spent my time over the 2 weeks highlighting my book and tabbing it in ways that I hadn't when we were reading through. And
An example of not that chaotic.
Yeah. Welcome to the lawful side.
gross. But one of the things that I love is that there's a point at which it's the conversation where Pal and Harrow and Cam and Gideon are like talking about keys and who's got keys and what they should do next and whatever. And they're like, yeah, I'm not really sure about the third house or like which of the twins we should be paying
Yeah.
attention to. And Harrow says they're
Everybody
both
says
only
that.
middling necromancers, but the big one is the dominant. She says I, the sister says we. And we as readers go, the big one means Corona. That is not who Harrow meant. If
Really?
you go back through, Corona always says we, and Ianthe always says I.
Always says I.
So Gideon misunderstood entirely and led us along that path with her.
Carol, when she says the big one, she meant Ianthe.
The big one was from probably a necromantic perspective then.
Yeah.
Not from
Interesting.
a anatomist's perspective.
Yeah.
And I mean, definitely, Ianthe's selfish as hell. I'm not surprised that this
No,
is
that makes a lot more sense, yeah.
Yeah. When you, especially when you go back to look at the duel scene, I like underlined all of the times. And Corona always says we, and Ianthe always says I.
Shit.
Yeah. We'll stand in for the whatever, and
Yes.
Ianthe is like, no. Okay, all right, so here's the deal. Ianthe tries to fight, but she's just not good enough. Cytherea literally pins her down and slices off her arm. She's going to slice off the other limbs, but Cam, like, pulls herself up on her, bad arm, throws with her one good arm, and throws her knife into the turbo cancer tumor that Palamides gave her. And so Cytherea's full attention is back on our heroes.
I have to point out, too, because even though we're doing the short version, part of why she's saying that she can just start chopping Ianthe up is because Ianthe would still be useful because a lictor is an everlasting battery for siphoning, which now explains the siphoning scene and pro-punching Silas.
Yes.
Which Dulcinea made him do because she was controlling him as a construct. So it was actually...
Because
Yes,
you can't
yes.
allow Silas to start siphoning Dulcinea because
he would realize she was an endless battery.
Yep.
Yes. That was what,
Spot on.
and Pal picked that up too. He was just like, the 8th would have been dangerous too if he had like started siphoning you. Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Detail question. It feels to me like we've seen Cytherea cough up more than one lung. Maybe 2 lungs and she's still breathing. So my question is, if we can regrow lungs, presumably, can we regrow arms?
Maria and I know that answer, but I don't think you do yet.
All right. We'll find out.
Cytherea's full attention's back on our heroes. She has a little bit of a sword fight with Gideon, but ultimately she recruits back her crazy bone monster. And luckily, Harrow wakes up just in time to throw up this bone shell around the 3 of them. So
Second
now
time
we
we're
have a
seeing
bone
that.
monster who's whipping its crazy long, like, trails of wiry teeth into the perpetual bone shell. And we have Camilla and Gideon and Harrow all underneath.
Oh, shoot. There's one more thing during this fight, because again, we didn't do the long version, but that's fine. There's one more thing where Harrow and Gideon merge again. Like, this is more foreshadowing. Harrow and Gideon merge again in the same way that they did in the Winnowing Challenge to try and start taking it apart. And when that is described, it's one of the nice callback lines in the book because it is described, Gideon describes Harrow entering her mind as a knife slipping into water, which is how Harrow is described getting into the pool when they have the pool scene.
Interesting.
I will say, if we're going to take that to its end, Harrow slips like a knife into the water and then ruins it by spluttering when she comes back.
Yes.
That's how I'm trying to interpret things.
It's just like one of those things. Like you read it and you're like, oh,
It's beautiful. It's a callback. Yeah. Yeah, they're actually, so like the fight, which we've skipped over a lot, has a lot of really beautiful teamwork, actually. Really beautiful moments of like trust and strength and feeling like you are yourself. And it's literally just not enough. It's obvious that there's literally no way to beat Cytherea with the tools that they have, right? So by the time we get into this bone shell, we have 2 very good but very injured cavaliers, a brilliant necromancer who can make perpetual bone but who's going to pass out again in a minute, and a new and imperfect lictor missing an arm, and we don't even know whose side she's on, and she's somewhere outside of the bone shell. Okay, so our 3 heroes are trapped under a wall of perpetual bone that is basically only going to last as long as Harrow does. They have nothing but a 2-hander, a couple of knives, and the iron spikes of a garden fence. They're just all going to die. And there's a beautiful set of conversations between Harrow and Gideon.
where Camilla is just like looking at the wall, trying to be like, I'm not here.
Love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Camilla's the best at reading the room of everyone.
Camilla's a much better third wheel than Gideon. Yes.
Yes.
So Harrow says, "Do you really forgive me?" And Gideon says, of course. And Gideon tries to explain, I think this is a beautiful line. She says, I'm no good at this duty thing. I'm just me. I can't do this without you. And she basically says that she's never a good cavalier. She could never have really been a cavalier. Harrow says, Gideon the Ninth, first flower of my house, you are the greatest cavalier we have ever produced. You are our triumph, the best of all of us. It has been my privilege to be your necromancer.
Gideon requires just the smallest bit of praise every time. Just the smallest tidbit.
It's true. She is needed so much for so long that any amount, but this is a pretty fucking big amount. This is a big thing for Hera to say. This isn't a like, you know, our earlier sets of praise were like, you're a brilliant swordswoman, you're still a dick though.
Right?
Like, this is unequivocally, and specifically to say, it has been my privilege to be your necromancer.
Yep.
To say this is not a question of you belonging to me. It has been a privilege to belong to you. It is this really powerful thing. And Gideon can't take it, right? So Hera was trying to come up with these like scenarios. She's like, I'll break a hole through the bone wall. You and Camilla can go over the edge. Bones float. You know, it's a long way to the sea, but you'll be able to get down there. And Gideon's like, absolutely not. Unequivocally no. Mm-hmm. She realizes that she knows what she has to do. She has to do the cruelest thing that anyone has ever done to Hera. It's heart-wrenching because we at so many different times have heard people say that no one should ever have to watch their necromancer die. No one should ever have to watch their cavalier die. It's a reminder that the pain lives with the person who lives, right? Mm-hmm. And Gideon is going to leave Hera to live with that pain. So she says, for the ninth, and she falls forward, impaling herself on the iron spikes.
Fuck. So John, at what point in this text did you realize what was about to happen?
I want to say when they were discussing escape options while being in the ball, like especially as soon as they like mentioned some of like the stuff that was stuck in there with them, like I think that was when I started to know. It was like, oh, well, there's only one real way out of this, and a little bit of metagaming here, but we know that the second book is called Harrow the Ninth, so Harrow has to make it out of here. So it was just the
cheater. Yeah,
logical conclusion of that. But yeah, no, it was probably like a page or two earlier.
Right before me.
I mean, it's probably very similar to when you figure out like this was.
There's a line that says, Gideon stood behind the iron fence that once had protected some herbaceous border, as though its bent bowed spikes would be good for anything other than throwing herself down on as one last fuck
Where's
you
that?
salute. Page 423.
I'm gonna fucking.
I did not. I don't think I clocked it there. No, it was definitely after that.
I have
9 pages before the end. This is the thing that's so bitter. That's why you keep rereading these books. 9 pages before the end, there is that line where Gideon notices the fence.
I have a comment right where Gideon says, "I'm no good at this duty thing." Yep. I can't. I'm not your real cavalier primary. I never could have been. I can't do this without you. And I'm like, fuck! What does my comment actually say? Oh, they're gonna lift her up in this moment, aren't they?
Yeah.
Fuck!
Interstitial. Oh no! Heroics! Well, Gideon's got a spike through her heart, so I guess it's time for a game. This whole fight scene has had some pretty sweet smack talk, so I thought this would be a good time for us to get in on the action. This week, I'm going to ask our hosts to give us their version of a motivational speech to the troops, that's the rest of us hosts, to buoy us up for the fight against Cytherea, 7th saint to serve the king undying. John, you want to send it?
Yes, so my inspiration for this is inevitably after we lictor Gideon and Harrowheart, because I'm assuming going to break out of the bone orb shell thing that she has going on. And so I took my inspiration, again, Roman Empire, from the first Gladiator movie.
Hell yes.
I'm ready.
My name is Harrowhark Nonagisimus, Reverend Daughter of Jerbo, heir to the House of the Ninth, loyal necromancer to the true God Emperor, daughter to dead parents, necromancer to a dead cavalier, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
That's so good. That is really good. Marie, do you want to give us yours?
I can't follow that because I think that I'm just going with my mom's classic. Well, life's a bitch and then you die. So I guess we'll go out swinging.
God. Brooke, what do you have?
I don't know how you do this. How do you fight against Shiva, the destroyer? I mean, how do you fight against someone with nothing to live for, nothing to fight for except for your own destruction? I guess you can just lay down and hope your death isn't meaningless. I guess the only alternative then at that point, and the one that makes more sense, is to persist and fight for the right to an undetermined future that isn't dictated by an ancient, bitter mummy who's lost sight of what it means to be alive.
What is that from?
God, these are so fucking good.
It's not from
Did you
anything.
come up with... Oh.
I just wrote it.
Good God. I'm
John,
very
do you feel
impressed.
inspired? I feel
No,
inspired.
I'm very impressed. I thought for sure that Brooke took that from a movie. That's awesome.
This will sound weird, but I immediately thought of this scene actually from The West Wing. So I'm going to start with something from The West Wing, which is this anecdote that may or may not have ever existed. There's a man who's in one of the internment camps during World War II, one of the death camps, and he's praying. And there's another man who comes up to him and says, "What the fuck are you praying for?" And he says, I'm thanking God that he didn't make me like them." And so that's what this starts with, is this thing that says, we are not like this. We are not people who treat people like things. We will not be a party to a world that endorses people like this. We are not like this. So we fight for all of the people who stand up to this level of evil. We will not let ourselves sink down into it.
I don't think we're talking about the book anymore, but
Well, I'm straight up moved to tears, and even my dog is no longer hiding under the bed. And for those of you that know Pepper, that's a big deal. All right, so, okay, now we're in the fight. It's just that time for good old-fashioned trash talk. So what are you saying to Cytherea as you stab her / give her turbo cancer / subsume her under a pile of skeletons?
John, I'm so upset with for you on your behalf with Cytherea as our
Yes.
pronunciation here. You go for yours anyway.
Here, you can do Cytherea.
Well, yeah, it was. Well, I thought I originally was pronouncing it Cytherea or Cytherea, and it was like Cytherea, more like Ditheretha, but that doesn't work anymore because that's not how you pronounce her name.
Cytherea.
Still
More like Ditherea.
It's still amazing.
Oh God, that's so annoying. And then yeah, obviously you have all the bone puns. So like, you're so bone now. I've got a bone to pick with you. Like, you can just pick your bone pun. That's your
You know
trash
what's
talk.
kind of funny is in this chapter, she looks at Harrow and she goes, "Oh God, I wish the Ninth would do something more original than bones." It's coming from the woman who's got the most massive bone monster as her little like pet.
yeah.
Thank you.
heck?
I actually have a note in mine as well that's like, okay, like,
Pot
how
kettle.
dare you? All you've been doing this entire time is stabbing people with bones.
Yeah.
Fucking cool it. Anyway.
I think all of my insults would have something to do about, kind of what we talked about. You spent this whole time killing people instead of going to therapy. Like,
Have you considered therapy?
consider therapy? Have you considered talking to anybody about your feelings? Have you considered talking to the Emperor? Doesn't seem like you've ever talked to him about this. Like, I don't know what you're mad at, but I don't know why you're taking, like, hurt people, Cytherea.
Hurt people.
You literally just do like a BetterHelp ad in the middle.
Yes.
You're like, can we pause this fight for...
That's so funny. I'm a big fan. I want to ask her, oh my God.
Cytherea.
Cytherea.
I was just as mad, you guys. I still am angry about it.
Cytherea, why'd you turn on all the other lictors? Was it because they complained too much about your disgusting habit of expectorating respiratory organs?
Yep. That's disgusting.
I had a series of "You're so old that."
Do it.
You're so old that you couldn't even get a girl to tell you who she has a crush on in her dying moments. You're so old that I bet that if Silas touched your thallergy, you'd have withered into ancient dust. I'd love to see what that entropy field would do to you.
Oh, yeah.
You're so riddled
that
with
brings
cancer
back too. The reason she couldn't do the fucking entropy
Yeah,
field
sure
is because
does.
she didn't have pro.
She had no cavalier to siphon.
Yeah. No cavalier to say.
Or also,
I'm
she
convinced
couldn't,
she couldn't
be
have walked
seen-
through it
She could have
herself.
walked
She
through
had
it,
it-
but she can't be
yeah.
seen walking through it without a calf.
Yeah.
Still, there's ways of getting that key anyway. You're so riddled with cancer that my grandma had more thallergy than you in her dying moments. I'm not sure that makes sense, but I liked it anyway. I needed a grandma
This is
joke.
incredible. I love that you went full necro smack talk. I went with the following. You look terrible in sun hats.
I was trying to get a fashion one out there. Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
Well, especially since this entire fucking thing, that's the other thing that I thought was crazy that I didn't really really, really hit me until this time through, that entire fight is in the Sun Terrace where she spent all of her time with Gideon, reading novels and knitting.
Oh, that sweet little scene.
Yep.
Not nearly as sweet now.
I'm pretty sure I know who I'm betting on in this fight, so it's about time that we move on to the battles ahead. So it's time for rampant speculation and, for 1 week only, deep existential introspection. Act 3. You should have listened more closely. Now is the time when we ask our shell-shocked cavaliers not to fall on any posts, but instead to give us their conspiracy theories for the future, and also to introspect about theories past. Brooke, you want to take us away?
God, what an I told you so on the fucking act title here. Should have listened more closely.
I'm so mean.
Yeah, John texted the group this, and I had the same thought. Like, it tells us how much we love Gideon, that we refuse to consider this, like, fairly obvious outcome. John already said it, like, we know that the next book is from Hera's perspective. We've talked about this whole time that Gideon is not a main character. Like, we are clearly reading a book from a side character's perspective. The comedic relief's perspective was not the main character who's actually going through the plot. We've also been talking about the merging of two souls, one body. Like, it's all there to look at this book and go, well, should be the prequel to Gideon the Ninth, who has become a lictor after consuming her calf's soul. Like, it's all there. But we love Gideon too much to, like, allow that to, like, fully click in our heads. Let's see, we've got some material that we wrapped up this week. Some we closed the books on the whole Dulcinea being the other body in the incinerator. Cytherea explains why she killed the fifth, although she doesn't explain why she killed the fourth. Did she? Did I miss that?
No.
We kind of get a sense for her, like, kind of relative maturity. We talked about that. And we also learned why she gave her keys to the eighth voluntarily, that other weird little snippet. Was there anything else this week, John, that we kind of, like, got, like, clear answers to? The big one was really just about Dulcinea.
No, that one was the big payoff. And yeah, again, I go through this book continuously just annoyed that we got so close to nailing things and then just didn't take it like one step further or just correct it slightly. And so, yeah, just like you said, Brooke, as soon as we figured out how the lictor process works, we should have immediately seen the end of this book coming, and we just didn't.
You know what? But, like, I don't exactly blame myself for being like, oh, it makes more sense for the Cavalier's soul to enter for the Necromancer's soul to enter the Cavalier because, like, this whole necromancy thing feels pretty, like, metaphysical, whereas, like, fighting talent feels very physical. And we saw it in, like, the last episode where Ianthe is, like, trying to use Nudiberius's skills and, like, is able to mimic them, but doesn't actually have, like, the real muscle to bear its full power. And so, like, I think in my head, like, that was, like, always sitting there of, like, it makes more sense for the Cavalier's body to be the one that's maintained because the Cavalier's body has, like, this physical presence. But I guess we also know that necromancy is not, like, fully metaphysical. I guess that's not necessarily true evidence that we have anything here. So
I also, this is not a spoiler. I just feel like we should also recognize that necromancers may just straight up be selfish. They're like, I shall keep my beautiful form in my, or whatever.
they've got the bigger power.
I don't know. Maybe they just want to stay themselves, but eat something.
Who wins in a fight between Gideon and Harrow at this point, if we were in this present?
Well, I think that you see something there. It's something to speculate about, right? Because the only information that you have is Cytherea saying that it was hard to become a lictor, even though Loveday went willingly. And Ianthe is having a hard time because Babs didn't.
Okay. Well, we have some new mysteries as well. Cytherea had a couple weird comments that I feel are worth putting on the record for us to remember when this episode comes out and we hear it again. Cytherea calls herself the Vengeance of 10 billion. What's that all about?
Isn't that the amount of souls that they said was down in the facility at one point? It was
Something
like
like that.
10 or 100,000 or 10,000, 100,000 ghosts or whatever it is.
Something about
Doesn't
that.
it come out to 10 billion? I haven't gone back and checked.
10,000 million?
She's their vengeance. Whatever that means. She also makes some oblique comment to the Emperor showing up and something coming when she calls. He won't see it. The thing that comes when she calls. What the fuck is that? It's pretty ominous. Makes me think about the black-eyed Silas, or sorry, column-ashed infiltrator, whatever the fuck that is. Because that's creepy and unexplained as to this point. And then the last thing is is she being cagey about, like, what she knows about Gideon's background? Like, she makes all these, like, oh, I knew another Gideon. And then, like, she's got the whole thing about, like, oh, your eyes, lipochrome, or whatever, blah, 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 blah. Like, does she know more, you think?
Well, I think she has to, right? Because one of the original people in the facility, from
Was
the
a
note
Gideon.
it was a Gideon. So
Yeah, but either she's dancing around it or she hasn't quite made the connection yet.
one of my theories is that, again, this is going back several weeks now, where I think Gideon is like part lictor already, or like the offspring of a lictor, or something along with
Oh my
like some
God.
form of lictor demigod. So I
When
assume that
Harrow
when
picks her up, she's like 1.5 lictors.
yeah, I'm assuming she's going to become like a turbo lictor. Is my general thought, is because yeah, that would just track. Or like there's like a sleeper agent lictor inside Gideon, like the like they're like, again, I still think there's like a part of a lictor, or like, again, she's partially a lictor already. So when
Yeah,
they lictor her, maybe that soul gets like brought in as a third wheel, or gets activated. I don't know. There's something. I think
that
Harrow
Gideon
Hart's
was
gonna be,
made more than just born as a normal human.
yes, because again, like all of the things, she's like super good at sword fighting. Like she's natural. Like she regenerates super fast. I think she's partially like maybe like 10% already lictor, or like like an offspring lictor. Something there.
Interesting.
Can I stir the pot?
Go for it.
Something that you guys are also forgetting about. What was the message
Yeah. What was the
that
message?
Calamities touches that makes him go, oh, fuck, this isn't
and so,
Dulcinea?
yes.
The
right.
big letters
Thank you
said,
for reminding me. What is it that they said?
You lied to
you
us.
did
lied
this
to
to us.
us.
You lied to us.
to us.
And that was written by Cytherea. And it was
She's
from
a fan of
10,000
writing things
years
in
ago.
large letters on walls.
Oh,
This has been a
God.
consistent feature for her.
The room is 10,000 years ago, is 10,000 years old, and it's her lab.
Wait, no, that's her lab? I thought that was...
Yes. Where they show down with Ianthe, the one that was locked with the perpetual bone.
That was 7th. Did we know that?
The 7th house, it's
think
like
we
all
did.
airy and beautiful, the murals and everything, except for the letters that say you lied to us. And Palamides brushes up against them and goes,
And he
these letters are
realizes
not
that-
10,000 years old, and they match another signature.
We nailed that in our conspiracy.
Yeah, but what does
section.
you lied to us mean?
Yeah, and if it was written in the present and not in the past, that's also an interesting clue. I mean, to some extent, this feels like something that's very associated with her calling the Emperor back. She's got a bone to pick with this whole situation. So
I'm moving my theories around a little bit, because we've been talking about this since like almost the very beginning, but there's been a couple of so Ianthe starts talking about like the soul of a planet, what you would need to resurrect all the houses, like what she says, and then vengeance of 10 billion. So now my theory is that the way that they lictored God, the original God, not God Emperor, the way that the God Emperor lictored God was killing the entire planet, and the soul of the planet, I guess, or like the spirit of, like, killed everything on Earth, and then that's how they lictored God, was that they used all the death energy from everyone dying, 10 billion, to lictor God, and then God's body is in the tomb.
and that is
still.
what it is done is.
Yeah, so God killed everyone. Well, new God Emperor killed everyone, and then resurrect. I don't know.
And then that would explain why the houses are so like genetically distinct, is that they were only coming from like the lictor lines and not
Yeah.
from a wider population.
Damn it, we're gonna read. I'm gonna read these two chapters immediately afterwards. I'm gonna have hopefully resolve some of this.
I
But
don't think
no,
so. I think this is all the plot of this coming
Alright.
series, right? The larger plot with the Emperor. This is the prologue.
Yes, we initially talked about how I thought that God sent a flood to destroy it because they figured out necromancy. But now I'm wondering if they killed everyone to become lictor/necromancer. Ugh.
It feels like there's got to be like a greater good thing initially, and I'm not certain we've put our finger on what that greater good is supposed to be.
Because I think that the Emperor's a piece of shit who lied to them. So
Kindly
maybe,
master.
yeah.
Yeah,
damn
so
it.
what we do know about the Emperor, we're learning he lives outside the solar system. And
And he doesn't want to come back.
he's not just not landing on Earth, he's like not coming into the entire solar system. Like she says he's going to be perched outside the solar system, like kind of watching. And that all the other lictors apparently are on his side still. That's what Cytherea believes. Cytherea.
It doesn't sound like the lictors have been back either.
No. Well, maybe not. And also, it sounds like they're not actively with him right now. So
The hands, yeah.
the hand. Okay, a lot there still, a lot unknown, but those are the first kind of clues we're getting. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for our little clues on where we're going in the series, is trying to figure out who those 10 billion are, why they are dead and require vengeance, and how the Emperor is going to be interacting with our brand new lictors.
All right, based on Cannon House being the promised land, I'm going to say the lie to us is the Emperor promised salvation or paradise to the lictors, and then obviously
What, on Pluto?
No, in Cannon House, and then they could, and then obviously not for I keep wanting to say Cytherea, obviously not. She just got 10,000 years of suffering, right, and just like slowly not dying, but being unable, like just lots of suffering. I don't know. I'm going to read the next 2 chapters immediately after this conversation and be so annoyed. Right?
See, now we're all clapping our hands unironically. See how important teacher is?
Oh, yeah. Now that teacher is completely and totally kicked the bucket and is dead and done. Do you guys understand? Like, we're so sorry that we made such a big deal out of teacher,
I'm so
but
sorry.
I still
It's
think
literally
that
that I
teacher is so
love him.
fucking hilarious.
I just think he's funny.
I kind of thought he was dead weight.
He is! He's literally not alive.
I'm more annoyed that I thought he was a lictor.
Yeah, we were
He's such a
assigning.
red
Well, to be
herring.
fair, he is like a lictor prototype, is what we talked about. Like
Yeah.
he is in a lot of ways. He had some level
But
of power that is
he's
like on the way
he's
to
so
lictorhood.
boring compared to Cytherea, so like it's just so.
Well, he's not a single human. He doesn't have, sounds like he's got a lot going on. Complex character.
You rat bastards.
We're so sorry. We just think he's funny.
Humans are famously difficult when they only have like 2 personalities in one.
The thing
Actually,
is,
and
I
with one
think-
personality in one, he's got hundreds.
I think the moment that I fell in love with teacher was like at the very beginning when they're like, oh, so like, how are we going to go about doing lictorhood? Like, do we need to do these things? Like, what are you going to tell us how to do next? And they're like, or he's telling them the rules and he tells them the one rule and then they're like waiting for more. And they're like, well, how do we become lictors? And he's like, well, I don't know. And from that moment, I was a teacher stan.
I like him even before that, because there's a moment when Hera was like, twins are an evil omen when she sees the third get off of their shuttle, and he's like, ooh, how delightful to hear someone say that an evil omen could come from the Emperor's mouth. I just love it. Okay.
Sorry, we are teacher fans. We're not apologetic about it. We are.
That's fine.
Fully
That's fine. Please
unapologetic
don't.
teacher stands. Okay.
Well, the worst has already come to pass. So I guess we'll see if we get more clarity next time when Brooke and John return for the final chapters of Gideon the Ninth.
And if you, dear listener, are like Brooke and myself, reading along for the first time, make sure you find our reading calendar on our website, frontline5th.podbean.com, or follow us on Instagram or TikTok, which are both linked in the show notes. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends and give us a 5-star rating anywhere you can. If you didn't like it, feel free to lie. Now head off to sleep, my baby necros. Mommy and Daddy have some deep spoilers to discuss.
Get in, losers. We're going speculating.
Act 4, The Ghost Within the Thing.
Warning, this portion of the podcast is 98% spoilers and like 2% snickering.
Seriously, we will spoil anything and everything in the series up through Nona the Ninth. If that's not what you want, turn back now.
This is the one time that I have absolutely, completely, and totally cracked while they were speculating. I was like, you are going to be so mad because you don't get to know any of that for sure until fucking Nona.
I know, sorry. It was amazing. I was really enjoying your face. You're taking off your glasses, you're wiping your eyes, and they're just like sitting there talking because they have learned everything they can learn from this book.
And
they're
will
speculating
not
about
learn.
things that are so big.
And they will not learn it. Like, we know it. We're like, yeah, you're absolutely spot on. They kill the Earth. They kill the 10 billion. That is how he becomes God. You're still a little bit off on the lictor God or whatever. But, you know, we'll see how you feel
100%.
about it when you meet God. I cannot wait. I cannot wait for John to meet God and to learn that
I mean,
God's name is John.
I'm trying to remember. He doesn't. So I think we don't learn that God's name is John in the epilogue. We just meet him as God.
We don't learn
Yeah,
it
so we
until
literally
like
won't
maybe
get that till
3 or
next
4
book.
chapters in. Like it is a long way into the book before she's
It's
like.
not until Mercy talks about him. Like,
and then she was
until
like,
we meet
wait a
Mercy
minute,
more.
they keep saying John and then looking at him. Oh my God, is his name John?
It's so good. I also, oh my God, the other thing that's like delightful. So I just refinished Harrow the Ninth. And of course, a huge part of it is you're so angry and frustrated and confused because Harrow has gone mad. And so the information you're getting is like bad and confusing information. So a lot of your thoughts and theories are about that. You actually like stop
Forget
thinking
about
about the bigger
the big
picture
picture.
for a while. Yeah.
Oh, creepy, but I always thought it was really weird that the lictors are referred to as fists and gestures.
Yeah.
I got a theory about it.
Tell me
because
more.
I started into Nona. When Jod is first messing around with necromancy and he's puppeting Ulysses and Titania, the first thing he does is make them close their fists.
Close their fist. I love
And
that.
he
And yeah,
makes
the very
a
first
line
thing he
about
does
how
are
they
gestures.
are how they become his fists or gestures, or he makes some sort of line about that.
That's so much darker, honestly. The idea that he is
Yes.
seeing these people exclusively as extensions of his own.
Yes.
I mean, I guess that's what the metonymy of it anyway is, that his fists and gestures, but it just subsumes them into him. He's puppeting them. That's so ugly.
Yeah. Because I was always like, fist and gestures, like that's such a, like, I've never really, maybe this is like kind of like a more like I don't read enough history about, god or emperors. How they refer to their minions, like maybe, like I was like, I don't know if like maybe this is referring to something or whatever. And then I read that part in Nona and I was like, ooh, I don't like that.
No.
That's gross.
Well, I mean, it honestly, from the beginning, any sort of metonymy like that where you're using like a part to stand in for a whole, that sort of thing happens all the time in terms of hierarchies when you're talking about my right hand, my,
I thought
that
that's
sort of
kind of
thing
where it
is
was
there.
coming
But I
from.
feel like he takes it to another level.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. And especially to do gestures is kind of interesting because that's like, it's not a hand doing whatever it wants on its own. It's like, I am choosing the shape that you will be in.
Yes. And sorry, this is probably going to be all over the place, but I was kind of looking back at like the things that I had highlighted, and it does make me wonder about one of the big things that kicks off these set of chapters is Palamides' ability to see the ghost within the thing, his
Yes.
psychometry. And when we first meet Palamides and Cam, they're talking about the ages of everything in Canaan House.
Still stuck on this. I think about it every day.
I'm wondering, like, so there's a handful of things. One of the things that I've been going through trying to figure out is like the timeline of how long things take. So I think I've got a pretty good handle on Gideon, where between the letter and landing at Canaan House is 3 months. They get 3 months because they reference that Gideon gets a week to sulk and then she gets 11 weeks to train.
Yes.
And then I think that the way that the timeline is described in Harrow, it also matches up with it being 3 months in her mental timeline.
Her version with Ortis. That's correct.
Yes. And then I think, but I'll have to confirm this with Harrow, it's anywhere, the last few things happen within 5 days. Like 4 or 5 days. But up until then, it's a little bit cloudy. It could be anywhere from 2 weeks to a little less than 2 months. For sure, I can only count 15 days, 15 or 16 days at Canaan House for sure. But there might be more waiting around that we don't actually get confirmation of before things start kicking off. But once things start kicking off, it's like between the dinner party and the rest of the stuff, it is less than a week.
I think you're right. I think the only like clarity we get on Ultimate Timeline is weirdly when they're actually going through the cremains from the incinerator, and Ianthe says, she has a statement about how old she thinks they are. And Palamity says, you're off by about 2 weeks. Or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's like, but I don't know which direction off, but I think
It might be as much as almost 3 months, but then everything happens within the last week because Gideon says something to Dulcinea when Dulcinea catches her out and says, I've only been acting as the cavalier for less than 2 months. So that doesn't match up with the 3 months of training. But she could just be kind of counting things weird. So if she says less than 2 months, then she might be saying that, like, we've only been here at Canaan House for like 6 weeks.
Kithurea has a bunch of things she says during this, and some of them were things that our newbies picked up on. And I have so many questions about what Kithurea knows, right? For her to say, I am the vengeance of the 10 billion,
Right.
implies that she knows that Jod is responsible for the deaths of the 10 billion, whereas I'm sure he's been telling his lictors all this time that it was blood of Eden, or that it was like the assholes of the earth who let it die, blah, blah, blah.
The way that I interpret it is that means that Kithurea has been working with blood of Eden, which is why when the first house gets there to pick up things, because to me it's not really ever clear. I don't think Jod ever does go down. I think he just sends, he never goes down himself, right?
He sends like a cohort shuttle or something to
He says something specifically, I couldn't go down and search myself. But then when they did go down to see what had happened, they only found you and Ianthe and then like specific dead bodies, but they specifically did not find Cam or
Corona
or Judith or Gideon's body.
Yes. Which, oh my God.
Which means that blood of Eden was there before.
This is what I wanted to talk about, was like, what is the timeline there? What's the timeline between the death of Kithurea and the arrival of the cohort shuttle?
Immediate.
Because blood of Eden had to have been listening in. Blood of Eden came in first. That's very fast for them to know that that's there. And what is the dialogue there?
When you read Harrow, the timeline of what Harrow experiences in terms of Gideon's death is Gideon dies. The next day, she's on the shuttle, and that is the same day, I believe, that she does. As soon as she has her conversation with God, she has her surgery. And then it might be the second day. So like Gideon dies, next day she's picked up, second day she has her surgery. Third day, which is actually 8 months later, she wakes up in the bubble, and it is the third day after Gideon has died.
Yeah.
For her.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, that you can measure it based on true understanding of the world. Harrow has had this long, that tells you how long it's been since the surgery. And how many days there were between Gideon's death and her own lobotomizing. A thing that I'm fascinated by, and I'm sure we will find out eventually but don't know yet, is what happened in the time delay, even if it was just one day, between the death of Kithurea and Ianthe and Harrow being picked up by the cohort. Blood of Eden had to have arrived, had to have removed Cam, Corona, and Judith. And, it's unclear to me why they removed them rather than killed them, because they're very anti-necromancers and actually...
They are very divided. Blood of Eden is not a cohesive movement.
Multi-faction, multi-leader, probably multi-strategy, all happening simultaneously in chaos.
Some of them work with necromancers, and some of them work with lictors, and some of them are absolutely not.
Right. So... do you think that Ianthe and Harrow had a conversation with Blood of Eden before they left with the cohort? Does Ianthe know where her sister went?
Ianthe maybe, based on the things that she says, but then it's I don't think so. I don't
think so either, but it's a weird circumstance where you have these two different groups of people who get picked up almost simultaneously, but with a delay that we know must exist in favor of Blood of Eden being there first. And they take Gideon's body? It's fascinating.
We don't know actually what happens, right? But what I would guess is they go down, they find Cam and Corona actually alive. So I think that they come down and they find the two living, conscious people that tell them what has happened, or at least are convinced to tell them what has happened. And then they are going to argue for keeping certain things. So even though Judith is basically on the verge of death, Corona is going to argue for Judith, and Cam is going to argue for Gideon's body.
Yeah.
And they're going to, I don't know why they think that Gideon's body is going to be important. That one I do think is weird.
I wonder if Harrow told Cam to take it.
Yeah. I don't know why they think that Gideon's body is important, but nothing... else is, but I would feel like they would leave the lictors alone because lictors are fucking dangerous.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll get back to that. Maybe we can talk about it more, in the future. I really, really want to hear from you how much back and forth you think happened between Cytherea and Blood of Eden. The implications from Harrow the Ninth are that Augustine and Mercy Morn were working together with Blood of Eden, but there's no intimation that Cytherea was part of that plan. But we know that she is back channeling on her own with Blood of Eden. And so it's very interesting. She says he lied to us, which means that she knows that he lied either about the death of the world and or about the lictor process. She sees Gideon's eyes, so she knows, she recognizes them as Electo's eyes.
I feel like the "you lied to us" is specifically about her grief over lictorhood. And
I think
not
so too.
as much about the 10 billion.
Because that doesn't matter to her. She wasn't even there. Like, I think it's a much more personal thing when you lied to us as a personal betrayal. For her to know that and for her to see Gideon's eyes, she didn't know necessarily about this baby that they were planning with Wake. So it's hard to imagine how I don't know. She just seems to know a lot more than we really understand.
But I think
and she says some things that are weird.
I think in Harrow, doesn't Augustine say Kith would have known as soon as she saw you?
Yes. She definitely, he says that. So, definitely, pulled it together, understood what was happening, but there's still some weird things. She says at one point she's trying to actually ask Gideon not to kill herself, and she says, cry mercy, please. You don't even know what you are to me. You're not going to die here, Gideon. And if you ask me to let you live, you might not have to die at all. I've spared you before. Yeah. She definitely knows about the lictor process. She says that no one should ask someone to be a lictor, not even Jod, especially not him, which definitely says that she knows that he did it a different way, and that for him to ask everyone else to become a lictor this way is just this beyond cruel horror.
I find it interesting, the whole, oh my God, they would have known in the moment they see your eyes. I've always thought that the way that Electo's eyes and Jod's eyes are described are kind of weird, but have you ever seen the pictures of whale eyes?
No. Google. Oh, sorry, they really do look like Jod's description with this ring around it.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so look up
I didn't realize
blue whale
that.
eye. Sometimes those things are AI or photoshopped or whatever. This isn't. I'm pretty sure that actually is what their eyes look like. So I think that is what Jod's eyes are. But also, I think he already had kind of hazel eyes, and then as he becomes a necromancer, they get weirder and weirder and more gold. I think they're probably gold, startling gold, the same way that cat's eyes or a dog's eyes or a lion's eyes are startlingly gold. I think that showing up and being such an unusual eye color.
Oh, it's very noticeable. Nobody else has that. I think it's super, super obvious. The other thing, so Brooke brought this up. She says how long it takes before he breaks and crosses over before he sees what will come when I call.
Uh-huh.
My automatic assumption has always been Resurrection Beast, except I feel like they initially tell Harrow basically that she can't go back to the Ninth because a Resurrection Beast will come for her, which means that a Resurrection Beast would come anyway.
They follow the lictors.
So he doesn't even really need...
But it's I think I told you this, that maybe it's a meme of the snail, the poisonous snail that follows you forever. It never stops. That is how the Resurrection Beasts are described, is basically the lictors can never stay anywhere for more than a couple of years.
Yeah. That you're always moving.
Basically, the fact that she's been there that long at all means that they are possibly turning their attention to her.
To that end, though, she didn't have to fucking murder anyone at all. Ostensibly, she could come and hang out anywhere in the 9 houses, and a Resurrection Beast would eventually come over and drive literally all the necromancers insane, breaking the houses, and that's done. She done. I don't understand her plan. She crazy murder bitch. Why you crazy murder bitch?
I think that we don't know at all, but I also think that if they all saw that a Resurrection Beast was turning towards the houses, she wants it to happen faster than that, and if they see that a Resurrection Beast is turning towards the houses, they're going to come in full force with the lictors, and she won't have her showdown with him.
She definitely says very explicitly that part of this is that she doesn't want the lictors to be sent in instead. She doesn't want, she's looking to get God. She's not looking.
To say what will come when I call does suggest that she has a string on a resurrection beast.
A string on something, yeah. Not for nothing, but Resurrection Beast number 7 actually does show up faster and find them more intensely than they expected at the Mithraeum in Harrow the Ninth. So it's actually possible that it is following something more specific than just generally following God, generally following the lictors.
It's possible that in the Mithraeum, because it also shows up as soon as Nona goes to whatever planet that is, it shows up immediately following her. So it's possible that what it's following is the remnant that is attached to Harrow of the body.
Of Electo. Yeah, exactly. That makes perfect sense. I am so excited, Marie. This has been such an absolute joy. And having just reread Harrow, they're just going to be so angry. And am I a sadist? I'm getting so much joy out of every time John gets angry.
Me too. Again, I'm so glad that they didn't call us out on it, but I was I could not help myself. Just absolutely. I was I cannot keep a straight face through this. I'm so bad. I should have just turned my camera off because it's so funny to listen to the rampant speculation and be I'm so sorry. You will have to wait.
Get none of that.
For 2 books.
For so long. They are gonna, oh my God. I'm actually also very, very, very excited for John to find out, because right now he thinks that that Gideon is a little bit magic, which is what I think, and we know that that's because she's God's child, and he doesn't quite know yet, but he's gonna lose his shit when Gideon goes, I'm not fucking dead.
Hi, not fucking dead, I'm dad.
Exactly, he's gonna we're gonna break him. Oh God.
We're gonna break him.
Well, it looks like Harrow's dreams of lictorhood are all coming true. So we'll be back next week to read the final pieces of Gideon the Ninth. May she rest in peace.
God, you just keep going. Oh, it's fine.
If you want to follow along with us, our reading calendar is available on our website at frontline5th.podbean.com, and you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok, which are linked in the show notes. If you enjoyed this podcast, please tell your friends and give us a 5-star rating anywhere you can. And of course, if you didn't enjoy the podcast, feel free to lie. We have a Patreon, which you can join for access to bonus content every month. You can become a patron, which is worthwhile because our patrons are objectively the coolest people alive or dead at patreon.com/frontline5th. Finally, if you have any fun theories you'd like to share with us, feel free to email us at frontline5th@gmail.com. And with that, I'll just remind you not to unlock any tombs or enter any doors without permission because, ghosts. Bye!
Frontline Fifth is a Locked Tomb podcast conceived by Maria Adamako and starring Maria Adamako, Hannah Grunwald, Brooke Anderson, and John Ryan. Our cover art was designed and created by Maria Adamako, who also edited this episode. Our fabulous music was composed and recorded by Blake Anderson. The Locked Tomb series is a completely dope-ass book series by Tamsin Muir, who does not know we exist and is in no way affiliated with this podcast.
Scene.